So today I'm going to answer the module 8 to 10 checkpoint exam, which statement describes a feature of the IP protocol. IP encapsulation, IP relies on layer 2, IP relies on the upper layer services, modulated are used during the IP packet. I think the answer is IP relies on the upper layer services to handle situations of missing or out of order packets. uh, because the IP control is connectionless protocol, considered unreliable in terms of end-to-end delivery. It does not provide error control in the cases where receiving packets are out of order or in cases of missing packets. It relies on upper layer services such as TCP to resolve these issues. Next. The computer can access devices on the same network but cannot access the devices on other networks. What is the port probable cause of this problem? The computer has an invalid IP address, the cable is not connected, the computer has an incorrect subnet mask, the computer has an invalid default gateway address. And then this is the one. So question 3. What are two services provided by the OSI network layer? Choose two. So placement of the frames on media, routing packets toward the destination, encapsulated PDUs from the transmit layer, collision detection, from error detection. I think it's encapsulating PDUs and routing packets toward the destination. Hmm. Which which field in the IPv4 is used to prevent a packet from traversing a network endlessly? Time to live, sequence number, account number, differentiated services. I think time to live. Because the value of the time to live field on the IPv4 header is used to limit the lifetime of a packet. So, what information the loopback that provides the TCP or IP stack on the device is working correctly. The internet enable is working correctly, the HCP is working correctly, the device has end-to-end connectivity, the device has the correct IP address on the net. I think it's the TCP or IP stack on the device is currently working. Is working correctly because the loopback test sends packets back to the host device It does not provide information but about network connectivity to other hosts. Within a production network, what is the purpose of configuring a switch with a default gateway address? It provides the next hub where all that flows through the switch. Hosts that are connected to the switch can use the switch default gateway address to forward packets to the remote destination. The switch must have a default gateway to accessible by the telnet and SSH. The default gateway address is used to forward packets originating from the switch to remote networks. Yes, the one because a default gateway address on a switch does not provide layer 3 routing for PCs that are connected on the switch. But IPv4 header field identifies the upper layer protocol carried in the packet. I think it's protocol. Protocol version identifier. I think it's protocol because in the IP header that identifies the upper layer protocol, the packet is free. Refer to the exhibit match the packets with their destination IP address to the existing interfaces on the router. Packets with destination of 172.17.14.8 think it's fast Ethernet 01. Then 172.17.10.5 fast Ethernet 11. 172.17.6.15 I think it's fast Ethernet 00. 172.17 I 172.17.8.20 think it is the serial 00. Then the last one was 72.17.12.10 is fast Ethernet 10. Why is not? Why why is that not needed in the IPv6? Because any host or user can get a public IPv6 network addresses because the number of the available IPv6 addresses is extremely large. So for the next question, a network technician uses the ARP minus D command on the PC after the router that is connected to the LAN is reconfigured. What is the result after this command is issued? I think the ARP cache is clear. Because issuing the ARP minus D command on the PC will clear the ARP cache content. Which destination address is used in an ERP request flow. Language. Okay, 00, so language FFF. Refer to the exhibit. The exhibit shows a small switch network and the contents of the MAC address table of the switch. PC1 has sent a frame address to PC3. What will the switch do with the frame? The switch will forward the frame only to ports 1 and 3. The switch will discard the frame. The switch will forward the frame to all ports. The switch will forward the frame only to port 2. The switch will forward on the frame to all ports except port 4. I think it's because the MAC address of PC3 is not present in the MAC table of the switch because the switch does not know where to send the frame that is addressed to PC3. It will forward the frame to all the switch ports except port 4, which is the incoming port. Which statement which statement describes the treatment of ARP requests on the local link? They are received and processed by the legal target device. They are dropped by all switches on the local network. They are received and processed by every device on a local network. I think it's because one of the negative issues with ARP requests is that they are sent as a broadcast. This means all devices on the local link must receive and process the request. Next, which two types of IPv6 messages are used in place of ARP for address resolution? Choose two. Broadcast, neighbor solicitation, echo reply, neighborhood advertisement, and the cast echo request. I think let's go with this. What statement describes the function of the address resolution protocol? This is a magician. ARP is used to discover the MAC address of any host on a different network. Or ARP is used to discover the IP address of any host on a different network. Or ARP is used to discover the MAC address of any host on the local network. I think it's on the local network, not different network. What is the aim of an ARP spoofing attack? Load the network to fill the switch to associate IP address with the wrong map awareness. think it's to associate IP address to the wrong MAC address. Configuration mode with the command that is available in that. So process provides security on the console. Provides security. Match the configuration. R1 greater than issue equals to enable R1 config line for login. R1 config hashtag is for the internet, fast internet. And then R1 hashtag is for copyrunning config, startup config. What happens when the transport input SSH command is centered on the switch VTY lines? I think it's communication between the switch because the transport input SSH command when entered on the switch VTY will encrypt all inbound controlled telnet connections. A network administrator requires access to manage routers and switches locally and remotely. Match the description of the to the access method. So I think it's for the preferred out of access method for console, then remote access via a dial-up connection is for AUX. Unsecure remote access is for telnet. And then remote access method that uses encryption is for SSH. A new network administrator has been asked to enter a banner message on a Cisco device, which is the fastest way network administrator could test whether the banner is properly configured. Uh, Enter Control Z, power cycle on the device, exit global configuration mode, reboot the device, exit privilege EXEC mode, and press enter. Which two functions are primary functions of the of a router? Microsegmentation, domain link solution, packet forwarding, packet solution, flow control. I think it's path selection and packet forwarding. Match the commands to the correct actions. Configures a name of a router. Its router config hashtag hostname CL1. Provide security of the host. Provide security on the console. I think it's for password class, and then this one for that one. What are two functions of NVRAM? Who's two? To contain the running configuration file, to store ARP table, to store the routing table, to store the configuration, like to retain contents when power is removed. I think it's this one, and to store the startup configuration file. Because NVRAM is permanent memory storage, so the startup configuration file is preserved even if the router loses connect power. So refer to the exhibit, a user PC. The user PC has successfully transmitted packets to www.cisco.com, which IP address does not 72.20.1.18. I think it's match the command with the device mode at which the command is cleared. I entered. Match the command with the device mode at which the command is entered. So login, for the login, it's R1 config line hashtag, and for the service password encryption, it's for the R1 config hashtag. IP address 192.168.4.4 to 500.255.0 is for R1 config hashtag. My bad. It's for config if. So for the enable, this is the R1 greater than. Running, copy running, and config startup coding. A, route, a router boots and enters startup mode. What is the reason for this? The configuration file is missing from the NPR. That's 6 questions. What is the effect of using the router hashtag copy running code? I can copy running config startup config command on a router. The contents of RAM will change, the contents of flash will change, the contents of ROM will change, the contents of NVRAM will change. This is the one. Submit. What will happen if the default gateway is correctly configured on a host? So a ping from the host to 127.0.0.1 would not be successful. The switch will not forward packets. The host cannot communicate with others with the other hosts. The host will have to use ARP to determine the correct address of the default gateway. The host cannot communicate with the hosts in other networks. Then the PT activity. Next, what are two potential network problems that can result from ARP operation? Choose two. So large numbers of ARP requests but just could be cause the host MAC address default. Manually configuring static ARP associations on large networks with low bandwidth. Multiple ARP broadcasts could cause data communication delays. Multiple ARP replies sought in the switch map address table containing entries that match. Network attacker could manipulate MAC address and IP address mappings in ARP messages with the intent of intercepting network traffic. Next, which term describes a field in the which term describes a field broadcast address? Unicast, multitask, or broadcast address? I think it's destination IP for address. This one. Next, what property of ARP allows hosts on LAN to send traffic to remote networks? I think it's Local hosts learn the packet address of the default gateway. For the last question, I refer to the exhibit. A network administrator is connecting a new host to the register LAN to the service LAN. The host needs to communicate with remote networks with what IP address would be configured as the default gateway on the new host. So connecting to a new host to the service LAN, the options are the 10.156.157.254, 172.29.157.156. So let's submit it. Nice. That's it for the checkpoint exam. Thank you.